You are 15 years old. It is the last Friday of the month. You come downstairs for a glass of water, and your father is sitting at the kitchen table. The bills are spread out in front of him, not randomly. In an order, each one face up, each one placed carefully, as if arranging them properly might somehow make the numbers work. Beside the bills is a small pile of coins. He moves them from one side of the table to the other with his thumb, counting them, then counting them again. You stand halfway down the stairs. He doesn't know you are there. You watch him write a number on a piece of paper. He looks at the bills, looks back at the number, then closes his eyes. Just for a moment. When he opens them, he starts again. Your father works full-time. He has worked full-time for as long as you can remember. He isn't lazy. He isn't irresponsible. He simply has nothing behind his income. Every month the money comes in. Every month the money goes out. And when something unexpected happens, there is nowhere to pull money from except the next paycheck. You don't understand what is happening. You only know that your father is worried about money. You quietly go back upstairs. And that night, without really knowing why, you make yourself a promise. You never want money to have that much power over your life. You don't know how you are going to do it, but someday you will. If you want to understand how wealth is actually built, quietly, deliberately, and away from the noise, make sure you subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. At 23, you get your first real job. Your monthly take-home pay is $4,180. And for the first few weeks, you do what almost everyone does when they finally start making decent money. You spend it. You buy things you had been putting off. You eat better. You go out more. You replace things that were worn out. You tell yourself you deserve it. And you do. You worked for it. But one evening, you're sitting on your sofa with your banking app open. The balance is lower than you expected. Not dangerously low, just lower than it should be. And suddenly you remember the kitchen table, the bills, the coins, the pen, the starting again. You stare at your screen. Then you ask yourself a different question. Not, how much can I afford? But, how much of my income do I want my future to own? You open a calculator. $4,180 divided by 2. $2,090. You decide that $2,090 is enough to live on. The other $2,090 is going to work for you. You open an investment account. You set up an automatic transfer. $2,090. Every month. Half for your life today. Half for the life you are building. You stare at the transfer button. Then you press it. The money disappears. Not really, but it feels like it. For the first time in your adult life, you have deliberately chosen to have less money available today so that you can have more freedom later. Your friend Jordan texts you. We're going out tonight. You in? You look at the message. You can afford dinner. You can afford drinks. You're not broke. That's what makes the decision different. You're choosing. You type, yeah. I'm in, because this isn't about becoming someone who hates spending money. It's about making sure every dollar you earn doesn't automatically belong to the present. The first year isn't exciting. There is no dramatic transformation, no sports car, no mansion, no overnight success. You simply keep transferring the money. Payday, transfer, live, repeat. Your first year ends with roughly $26,000 invested, and something changes that has nothing to do with the balance. You stop thinking about money as something you either spend or save. You start thinking about it as something you can direct. That changes everything, because now every purchase has a question attached to it. You walk past a phone shop. There's a new model in the window. Your phone works perfectly. You still want it. And for the first time, you don't ask, can I afford this? You ask, do I want this more than I want what this money could become? You keep walking. Not because a new phone would make you poor. It wouldn't. But because you're learning a skill that will become much more valuable than the phone. You are learning how to separate wanting something from needing it. A few years pass. Your salary increases. And this is where your plan gets tested. Because raises create a strange temptation. The moment you earn more, your brain starts creating new ways to spend more. A better apartment, a better car, better restaurants, better vacations. And suddenly, the lifestyle that used to feel luxurious starts feeling normal. You decide that your rule will not change. The number can change. The percentage doesn't. 50%. Your income rises. Your investment rises. Your lifestyle rises too, just not as quickly. You aren't punishing yourself. You're simply refusing to let every raise become a new monthly obligation. Then your colleague James buys a $44,000 truck. 72 months of payments. You both make roughly the same money. One afternoon he looks at your car and laughs. We make the same money. Why are you still driving that thing? You smile. Because James doesn't know that you have tens of thousands of dollars invested. He doesn't know that your car is paid for. He doesn't know that you can replace it tomorrow if you actually need to. And you don't feel the need to explain. Because you're beginning to understand something. Looking wealthy and becoming wealthy are two completely different games. James bought something everyone can see. You are buying something nobody can see. Distance. Between you and financial panic. At 27, you go to a birthday dinner. It's expensive. More expensive than you normally spend. But you go. You eat. You laugh. You split the bill. And on the way home, you realize something. You're still enjoying your life. You haven't become miserable. You haven't stopped seeing your friends. You haven't stopped celebrating. You've simply stopped allowing every social expectation to decide what happens to your money. And that's when you realize the real benefit of the system. It isn't the discipline, it's the freedom that discipline creates. Your friends see the car you still drive. They don't see the emergency fund. They see the vacation you didn't take. They don't see the investments. They see what you didn't buy. They don't see what you're building. And strangely enough, you begin to like that. You don't need applause. You don't need anyone to know. Your investment account doesn't care what your friends think. The numbers don't care whether you look successful. They only care what you consistently do. Then you meet Claire. She's a nurse. Practical. Direct. She drives a car with more than 140,000 miles on it, and she doesn't apologize for it. For months, she doesn't ask about your finances. Then one evening she finally does. Why do you live like this? Not judgmentally. She's genuinely curious. You tell her. About being 15. About the kitchen table. About your father counting coins. About deciding that you never wanted to feel that helpless. She listens. Then she says, so it all started on a staircase. You smile. The why did. The how came later. She understands. And that matters more to you than she realizes. Eventually, you marry her. And one night after the wedding, you turn your laptop toward her. You show her the account. $168,000. She stares at the screen. Then looks at you. Then laughs. You've been driving that same car this whole time? You laugh too. It still works. But something bigger is happening. For the first time, your financial life is no longer something you are building alone. Now there are two of you. And together, you make a decision. You don't suddenly try to look rich. You keep the same basic lifestyle. Claire's income covers much of the household. Your income becomes the accelerator. More money goes toward the investments. Not because you suddenly hate spending, because the house is covered. The food is covered. The bills are covered. And you realize something powerful. You don't have to spend every dollar simply because you earned it. Then, at 30, you have a daughter. And suddenly the 50% rule gets harder. Much harder. Diapers, childcare, medical bills, unexpected expenses, things you never planned for. Some months, you save 45%. Other months, 55%. One year, an unexpected expense forces you to save less than you wanted. And for a moment, you wonder if the whole system is falling apart. Then you remember the original promise. The goal was never perfection. The goal was to stop your entire income from disappearing into your lifestyle. So you keep going. You adapt. You don't quit because one month wasn't perfect. And then the market falls. Hard. Your portfolio drops by $34,000 in 6 weeks. You open the account. The number is smaller. Your stomach drops. You check again the next morning. Still down. You start thinking, should I sell? Claire sees you staring at the screen. She doesn't tell you what to do. She simply puts her hand on your shoulder. And you ask yourself one question. Has the reason I invested changed? No. You don't need the money next month. Your daughter still needs the same things. Your job still pays you. Your long-term goal is still the same. So you don't sell. You keep investing. And eventually, the market recovers. But something more important has happened. You've learned that discipline isn't feeling confident every day. Sometimes discipline is simply refusing to make a permanent decision because of a temporary feeling. At 33, something strange happens. You sit down one Sunday morning and open your investment account. $528,000. You look at the numbers from the previous quarter, your contributions. $10,500. The portfolio's growth. $11,200. You stare at it. For years, you were the engine. Your paycheck created the money. Your discipline directed it. Your consistency kept feeding it. But now something has changed. Your money is beginning to work alongside you. You didn't work extra hours for that $11,200. You didn't negotiate another raise. You didn't take another shift. You simply owned assets and gave them time. And this is the moment when saving starts to feel different. At the beginning, every dollar invested felt like a sacrifice. Now every dollar invested feels like an employee. Another small worker that goes out into the world and tries to make more money for you. You haven't escaped work, but you've stopped making work your only source of progress. Then, at 35, you get called into a meeting. Your manager closes the door. You already know something is wrong. Your position is being eliminated. 10 years ago, this would have terrified you. Today, it still hurts. You still have bills. You still have a family. You still don't know what comes next. But there is one emotion that isn't there. Panic. Because you have built something between yourself and desperation. You don't need to accept the first job you find. You don't need to put everything on a credit card. You don't need to borrow money to survive the next few months. You have choices. You can take your time. You can negotiate. You can find something better. You can even take a lower-paying job if it gives you a better life. And suddenly you understand what all those years of saving were actually buying. Not luxury. Not status. Not even wealth. Margin. The space between something going wrong and your life falling apart. By 41, you are not technically retired, but you have reached a point you never imagined at 23. You don't need your job in the same way you once did. That's a completely different feeling. You can leave. You can stay. You can change careers. You can work less. You can wait. You can say no. And those choices exist because of thousands of small decisions that nobody celebrated. You and Claire have contributed just under $730,000 over 18 years. The portfolio is now around $1.6 million. Roughly $870,000 of that difference came from the money doing its own work. You look at that number for a moment, and you realize something. You didn't save $1.6 million. You saved the first dollars. Then those dollars helped create the next dollars. Then those dollars helped create more. Eventually, the money started carrying part of the load. That's what compounding really means. It's not magic. It's patience becoming measurable. People ask you what you gave up. The honest answer? Less than they think. You celebrated birthdays. You went to weddings. You helped people you loved. You took vacations. You bought things that genuinely mattered to you. You lived, but you became deliberate. You stopped upgrading simply because you could. You stopped spending simply because the money was sitting there. You stopped confusing expensive with meaningful. Still, 50% cost you something. It cost you impulses, some upgrades, some moments of keeping up. Sometimes, it cost you being understood. But then you think about the alternative. What would the other path have cost? Maybe reaching 40 with every raise already spent. Maybe needing a job you hate because you can't afford to leave. Maybe turning an emergency into debt. Maybe watching your entire financial life depend on the next paycheck. Both choices cost something. You're not choosing between sacrifice and comfort. You're choosing which sacrifice you can live with. The temporary discomfort of not spending everything today, or the long-term discomfort of always needing tomorrow's paycheck. And then there is one thing you don't expect. One evening, your daughter asks you about money. She's 15 now, the same age you were when you stood on those stairs. She asks why you still drive the same car. You laugh. Because it works. She rolls her eyes. That's such a dad answer. You laugh. And then you realize how different her childhood is. She has never seen you sitting at the kitchen table counting coins. She has never watched you stare at a pile of bills wondering which one has to wait. She has never felt the quiet fear you saw in your father's face, and she doesn't know why. Not yet. She just thinks dad is calm. She thinks dad has time. She thinks when something goes wrong, there will probably be a way through it. And that's when you finally understand what you were building all those years. It wasn't an investment account. It wasn't a $1.6 million portfolio. It wasn't even financial independence. You were building a different childhood for your daughter, a different relationship with money, a different relationship with time. And maybe that is the greatest return you ever received. Years earlier, your father sat at that kitchen table, counting coins, trying to make the numbers work. He worked hard. But every dollar already had somewhere to go, and eventually, you understood something that took you years to put into words. Your father wasn't poor because he didn't work hard. He was trapped because his income was his only protection. You didn't want to make the same mistake. So you started with half. Half for today, half for tomorrow. And eventually, tomorrow began paying you back. Now it's a Tuesday morning. You're sitting at the kitchen table, coffee in front of you. Your daughter is getting ready for school. Claire is somewhere in the house. And you look at the clock. There is nowhere you have to be immediately. Not because you stopped working. Not because you won the lottery. Not because someone handed you a fortune. Because over 18 years, you bought something most people spend their entire lives chasing. Time. Time to choose. Time to wait. Time to say no. Time to leave. Time to stay. Time to be with the people you love. And suddenly you think about that 15-year-old on the staircase. You thought you were watching your father count coins. You didn't know you were watching the beginning of your own financial philosophy. You didn't know about index funds. You didn't know about compound growth. You didn't know about percentages. You didn't know about retirement. You only knew one thing. You never wanted the people you loved to feel trapped by money. And 18 years later, sitting at that kitchen table, you realize you kept the promise. Not by becoming the richest person in the room, not by looking successful, not by spending your way into a better life, but by making one quiet decision over and over again. Half for the life you were living, half for the life you were building, and eventually, The life you were building gave you more of the one thing money can never buy back: your time. And while you are here, if you have ever felt like you started too late, like too many years have already gone, that video was made for you. It will change how you think about the time you still have. It is right there. And if you watched all the way to this moment, do well to subscribe if you have not already. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What would living on 50% of your income make possible for you? I genuinely read every single one. I will see you there.